Welcome back, Rayweather gang. Today we have the latest news surrounding the upcoming NFL 2K football video game, which I know a lot of you are anxiously awaiting. But really quickly before we get into the video, if you are new to the channel and you want to stay up to date on all of the latest news surrounding the upcoming NFL 2K games and Madden 22, which we should start hearing about any day now, make sure to subscribe, turn the bell icon on so that you never miss any of these updates or uploads. When they go live, you'll always be in the loop the second these videos drop. Now, as many of you remember, around this time last year, the NFL and 2K Sports came out of nowhere and announced that they were officially back in business together to make multiple NFL licensed football video games. And we hadn't seen that in over 10 years. We've only been dealing with EA Sports and Madden, but now 2K is back in the door and we're very excited about it. Now, we would come to find out that these games would be arcade style games, multiple different ones, multiple different experiences, but the bigger picture here is that with them being back in the door, I believe they'll be successful with these games. They will make the NFL a lot of money, and that's going to eventually lead to the NFL opening the license back up and letting Madden go head to head with 2K, which is what we all want as football fans. It's what we all want as consumers. Multiple games in the marketplace competing for market share, which means us, by default, the consumer gets better products because they're going to have to start innovating more. They're going to have to put more effort in, both companies. If you look at both companies respectively, NBA 2K with 2K Sports and Madden with EA Sports, both of those companies have kind of rested on their laurels. They aren't innovating as much. They're kind of rushing these games out every year to meet the deadlines. The games aren't usually polished or finished. There's a lot of problems because neither game has competition. But when you talk about the football gaming world, if they're both coming into this same market and they have to compete with each other, even if it is simulation versus arcade to start, just 2K being back in the door should light a fire under EA to produce a better product, because they know a few years out, if 2K does really well, which they should do, they look like they're hungry to do well, that's going to lead to the license being opened up. So either way, EA needs to get their act together to either prevent that from happening from their standpoint, if that's how they're viewing it, or they need to get their act together because when it eventually does happen, they want to have a better product to compete. Now, the latest news we have today, the unfortunate news, is that the first upcoming NFL 2K game has been delayed until at least 2022. It was supposed to come out for 2021. We assumed around the time that Madden 22 was going to release, around the beginning of the NFL season. Well, according to this article on Operation Sports, that's been dead for this year. It has been delayed, which some people look at as a good thing, some people look at as a bad thing. We'll talk about that and some more news a little bit later in the video, but first, let's cover the article. It says here, back in March of last year, 2K mentioned their non-simulation football game would release in 2021, but that doesn't appear to be the case anymore. Looking over the latest Take-Two earnings report, a new football game is not listed. It appears the return of 2K football has been delayed until at least 2022. Along with this also came a brief statement from 2K that says, while we are very excited to once again be working with the NFL and the NFLPA, our first title under these new partnerships is no longer expected to release during the fiscal year of 2022. Now, the fiscal year 2022, don't get that confused with the actual year 2022. Those are two different things. This just basically means that the game won't be coming out in a few months for this year's football season, but it would likely be coming out for the next football season in the year 2022. Now, here we have two tweets from Mr. Steven here, who does cover gaming, and he talks about how there's 21 games planned from Take-Two to release by the end of March in 2022, but in his follow-up tweet, he goes on to say, beyond that, for the 2-year period from April 2022 to March 2024, there are more than 40 games. Never seen a publisher publicly forecast this far out. And then he has a picture here with some more text, and it says that they're planning 19 immersive core releases, 7 of which are sports simulation games. 15 of these will be available for purchase, while 4 will be free to play. Now, before we finish with the rest of the video, I gotta give a huge shout out to Manscaped for sponsoring today's video. If you've been around my channel for any amount of time, you already know how much I love Manscaped and all of their grooming products for men. But today I'm excited to be one of the first to tell you about their new product, the Lawnmower 4.0. Yes, the infamous lawnmower has yet another significant upgrade. Now, just like all of the previous lawnmowers that came before it, of course it's waterproof, of course it's cordless, and of course it still has skin-safe technology, which reduces on the nicks, cuts, and snags. But there's some new features, including the new multi-function on-off switch that can engage a new travel lock feature. All you simply have to do is hit this power button 3 times really quickly. 1, 2, 3, you'll see it light up, and that enables the travel lock feature. If you want to unlock it, you hit it 3 times really quickly again, and it unlocks it. This way, in your suitcase, it can never be turned on. It can never waste your battery. The Lawnmower 4.0 even allows you to customize your preferred hair length with 4 trimmer guard options. Now, if you want to try the new Lawnmower 4.0 out for yourself, you can get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com/Eric20. Your balls Well, thank you. Now that's what's really interesting, because I talked about in a previous video the likely games that we'll see coming from 2K in terms of football. I'll link that video below in the pinned comment. I go over all the different styles of games that they'll likely be working on. But one of the games I mentioned was a college football game. And when they say here that they are planning 7 sports simulation games, I think that could be included in that, because when you think right now, how many sports simulation games do they have? They have NBA 2K. I'm sure they're including their WWE game in that. They do have a golf game now, but I can't think of 7 sports simulation games they have now. So maybe they're going to be working on a baseball game, potentially college football. We don't think it's going to be anything to do with the NFL game just yet, because they don't have the sim license, but this gets me excited because they have a lot of games on tap coming up soon, and we know that a bunch of them are sports games, and we also know that they have a few games that they're going to do with the NFL by default. Now, I did another video talking about how a lot of these companies seem to be getting back involved heavily with sports, and quite frankly, I think a big reason why is because of microtransactions, because a lot of these types of games they didn't want to deal with in the past. They didn't want to deal with them because there wasn't enough money in them. At least that's what we've always kind of been led to believe, because these games cost a lot to produce, the licenses are expensive, but the market share a lot of times isn't as big, and that's why we've seen a lot of the competition go away, because there wasn't room for more than one game to make the profits that these games want to make nowadays. Well, with microtransactions, obviously that changes things, because you make money hand over fist with those, and we've just seen that happen as we see the earnings reports from companies like EA and 2K. They're making tons of money. So in my opinion, that's why I think a lot of these companies are diving heavily back into sports games again, because now they see that there's an avenue to make a ton of money, so now they're interested in doing it again. But on the other hand, for us, the one good that could come out of this is us having more games in the market to compete with each other, and just more games period is always fun. Having different options to play, whether they're simulation or arcade, I think there's room for both. Clearly these companies do, because you see EA purchasing Super Mega Baseball, you see 2K putting out NBA Playgrounds and WWE Battlegrounds, and doing a deal with the NFL for arcade games. So clearly, you know, there's the Fortnite crowd out there that wants to play sports, and even some of us that have been playing games for years will pick up an NFL Street and play it. It's not simulation, but there's fun to be had there. So you're seeing a lot of these companies jump back into sports games now, and we're seeing that 2K has a lot of stuff planned for the future, which I think is exciting, but in the short term, it sucks that it got pushed back, because we were hoping for that to be out this year with Madden. But I think for the long haul, the one good I'm trying to pull out of this is that 2K is definitely heavily back into sports. We see it right here. It's in black and white. We know EA is diving back in as well. They announced college football. They bought Super Mega Baseball. They bought the F1 game, or the studio that creates it. They're talking about going into different games as well. That's going to lead to more competition, hopefully more innovation, because these companies have to compete with each other again. And we don't know if that NFL license is going to get opened up again. We hope that it will, but I think if 2K is successful, it's going to happen. So that's why I don't mind them pushing the game back, because we see them rush NBA 2K out every year the same way we watch EA rush Madden out every year. They got to make the deadline. The game launches in a terrible state. They spend months trying to fix the bugs. The core of the game in a lot of areas is still bad. The modes aren't getting the features that people have been asking for. We see it every year. So we don't want them to do the same thing with the new game. A lot of people look at 2K and they say, well, 2K is not the old 2K. If you're expecting 2K5, they're not doing that with a new football game, because they're not that company anymore. Look at NBA 2K and the problems. True, it's a valid argument that I agree with. However, the difference there is they own that market the same way EA owns the football market. 2K is trying to get back into things now. They can't afford to rush this release. They can't afford to launch the game in a bad state if they want to make a splash, if they want to make money, if they want to win the community back, and if they want to start that path of potentially getting a shot at a simulation football game again. They can't launch it the same way they launch NBA 2K. They need to take their time and make sure everything is as perfect as it can be. We know there's going to be bugs, because every game has bugs, but they need to release it in the best state possible. It needs to wow people. It needs to get good reviews. So if they're pushing it back with all of that in mind, I have no problem with it. Yes, it sucks in the short term because we can't play it, and we want to play it, and we want to see what they've been working on, but a year goes by pretty quickly. As long as it comes out by next year, I think that's pretty good. I think if they can deliver a quality product, I think that's going to really cause a shift in the entire football gaming world, because now EA knows what's coming. I think we might see that hopefully with 22. I hope the effort they put forth with 22 is them saying, hey, we know what's coming. We got to get back on our A game. We'll see if they do, if they don't, but I think the future could be bright. You know, I try to be optimistic, but in the meantime, it is delayed. So I did want to bring you guys that news. Let me know what you think about it below. Subscribe if you're new. Check out some of these other videos right here. And as always, I will see you guys next time.